Viewer discretion is strongly advised before we begin. The following content is presented strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. What you're about to read is the exact testimony from the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. As covered by Inner City Press, the courtroom held its breath as former Danity Kane member Don Richard took the stand. The atmosphere immediately changed. This wasn't a typical celebrity appearance. Dawn was a witness to horrors. Her testimony painted a harrowing picture of violence, an episode involving a skillet, raw eggs, and a terrified Cassie Ventura trembling in the fetal position. By the time she finished, the public image Diddy had crafted began to crumble. He leaned in toward his legal team, whispering, pacing, and as some present observed, beginning to unravel. This isn't just another trial. It feels like a moment of reckoning. And this first week has unleashed a storm of emotions, deep-seated trauma, and earth-shattering revelations, from secret recordings to gut-wrenching accounts from past collaborators. We're diving into everything surfacing now and how Diddy's legacy might be imploding in real time. When Dawn entered the courtroom, the energy shifted dramatically. No camera flashes, but every set of eyes, jurors, lawyers, and even Diddy, zeroed in on her. Once famous for her role in making the band and as a Danity Kane vocalist, Dawn was no longer just a performer. In this courtroom, she was a key witness, and her testimony was set to ignite the proceedings. Her voice was steady, yet carried the weight of what was to come. After a long pause, she began. And when she did, it all came rushing out. The first moment she described a disturbing incident in 2009 where, as she claimed, Diddy descended the stairs of his Los Angeles mansion. In a frenzied panic, Diddy was storming through his Los Angeles mansion, Don Richard testified, frantically searching for his phone. Cassie was nearby, and according to Don, he didn't ask, he barked commands. When Cassie didn't react quickly enough, he allegedly hurled a skillet full of eggs at her. The courtroom gasped. She tried to shield her face. Don recalled, he was screaming, and she curled up like a child, like she was trying to disappear. But that wasn't the end. Don claimed that Diddy then tried to kick Cassie as she lay on the floor, grabbed her by the neck, and dragged her upstairs. Moments later, she heard glass shatter. It wasn't just a sound, it was fear, she said. You could feel it in the walls. This wasn't rumor or secondhand gossip. Dawn was there. She saw it. And now she was saying it under oath. Her testimony was the rawest, most harrowing account yet, revealing the alleged violent behavior of a man whose public image had always been one of glamour and control. But it was the pattern, not just the violence, that shocked the room. Dawn alleged this wasn't an isolated breakdown, it was a system, a machine of control and fear, hidden behind the flash of paparazzi bulbs and billboard hits. Diddy, she claimed, micromanaged every facet of the women around him, especially Cassie. She needed approval for everything. Where to sit, what to wear, how to respond in interviews, even what to eat during marathon studio sessions. But this wasn't just control, it was psychological warfare. According to Dawn, Diddy crafted a world where women were simultaneously put on a pedestal and torn down. She described him holding team meetings in nothing but his underwear, humiliating women publicly, and forcing them into exhausting rehearsals with little rest or food. But Cassie, Dawn said, suffered the most. She couldn't leave a room without permission, couldn't turn down an assignment, and would be punished by being benched from shows or ghosted entirely. One of the most disturbing claims was how Diddy allegedly isolated her, confiscating her phone, discouraging contact with loved ones, and dismissing her complaints by saying, "You don't know how good you have it." Throughout the testimony, reporters noted Diddy's shifting demeanor, first calm, then arms crossed, then frantically whispering to his lawyers. At one point, a pen and paper were passed to him as he scribbled furiously, head shaking. Whatever image he'd once maintained, it was visibly fracturing. And then, just as the room tried to absorb Dawn's bombshells, the prosecution dropped something no one saw coming. An audio recording, not a phone call, not a voicemail, something worse. The prosecution introduced an audio recording of Cassie, caught in a moment of raw desperation. She was allegedly confronting a close associate of Diddy who had secretly recorded her. During one of the infamous freak-offs, as the tape played, the courtroom fell into a chilling silence. Cassie's voice cracked through the speaker's panic. Furious, desperate, delete it, she reportedly pleaded. I swear to God if you don't, The sentence was cut off, but the threat lingered, thick with emotion. Legal analysts said the recording could go both ways. It might paint Cassie as unstable, but also revealed someone at her breaking point, reacting to years of psychological torment. The defense objected, calling it misleading and out of context. The judge disagreed and let it stand. All eyes shifted to Diddy. He looked shaken, jaw locked, lips tight, hand over his forehead. One observer said he looked like a man hearing evidence he never thought would surface. This wasn't just another headline, it was a glimpse into how far Cassie had been pushed. The sound of her voice told a story no document ever could. But the most powerful testimony remained Dawn Richards'. What shook the courtroom wasn't just what she said. It was how she made everyone feel. She revisited the now infamous Skillet incident, insisting it wasn't a sudden outburst, but a calculated act. He didn't snap. She told the jury. He planned that reaction. Dawn described the morning in question. Tension filled the house. Cassie was anxious, and Diddy was already agitated about his missing phone. The moment he suspected Cassie had moved it, he snapped. He screamed her name so loud, the walls shook, Dawn said. Cassie appeared in her pajamas and, without warning, Diddy threw a cast-iron skillet full of warm food directly at her. The courtroom was dead silent. Dawn stared at the floor, composed but visibly rattled. She hit the ground, she continued, covered her head with her arms, and he just stood over her yelling. Dawn said she took a step forward but froze when Diddy turned toward her. His eyes weren't angry, they were empty. Like I wasn't even there. Then, she testified. He dragged Cassie upstairs. Moments later, glass shattered. A prosecutor asked why she hadn't intervened. Her response stunned the room. If I did, I honestly don't think I'd be here today. By the time Dawn stepped down, the prosecution's version of Diddy had crystallized: controlling, violent, emotionally destructive. But the defense wasn't going down without a fight. The next day, they launched a ruthless cross-examination of Cassie, zeroing in on her mental health history: therapy, PTSD, rehab. They implied instability, not trauma. Cassie didn't flinch. Yes, I went to therapy, she said, because I needed to heal from him. They brought up a previous rape allegation she'd made against someone else, one that was never charged, suggesting a pattern. Cassie didn't budge. It wasn't false, she said. It was ignored. Then came the texts. Hundreds of them. Romantic, raw, explicit. The defense highlighted lines like, "I'll do anything you want, just don't leave me." They claimed this showed obsession, consent. What did that mean? The attorney asked. Cassie looked up. It means I was brainwashed. That's what abuse looks like. The court went silent. Even the stenographer reportedly paused. They pressed further about a FaceTime she allegedly answered from her now husband. While still in bed with Diddy, the implication, she had choices. Cassie shot back, I didn't have choices. I had obligations. I was owned. Reporters noted Diddy's reactions: jaw tense, shoulders stiff, whispering urgently to his lawyers. His grip on the narrative was slipping. Then came the second tape. The most emotionally devastating moment of the week. A voicemail, prosecutors said, obtained from a former employee who had worked security for Diddy. Cassie's voice, frantic and breaking, echoed in the room. "Delete that video," she screamed, "or I swear to God, I'll end you." She was sobbing, gasping for air, barely coherent. The video in question, allegedly a recording of her engaging in a freak-off with Diddy and a male escort, used, prosecutors claimed, as blackmail. Cassie had only discovered the footage after leaving Diddy, and this was her raw, terrified reaction. The defense objected again. Out of context, they argued. The judge disagreed. The jury listened closely. When the tape ended, Cassie was calm. The defense tried to label her as violent. "I was desperate," she said, "because if that footage went public, it wouldn't just ruin my life, it would erase everything I fought to reclaim." One juror reportedly wiped their eyes. The courtroom's response was instant. Diddy turned pale. His foot tapped wildly under the table. He leaned into his lawyer, muttering urgently, then removed his glasses and covered his eyes. His empire, long built on dominance and secrecy, now seemed to be collapsing, one testimony, one tape, one truth at a time. A theme had begun to crystallize in the first week of Diddy's trial, one that cut through celebrity, money, and myth. The man the world saw was not the man behind closed doors. The mogul, the philanthropist, the music titan, all of it, prosecutors argued, was a performance. And for the first time, the mask was cracking wide open. Testimonies weren't just about isolated outbursts, they painted a system. A world carefully engineered around emotional domination, where affection was transactional and loyalty was enforced, not earned. Witness after witness described a man obsessed with image, terrified of losing control, and willing to go to disturbing lengths to maintain it. One former assistant, testifying under the alias Monica, spoke of bizarre workplace rules like avoiding eye contact unless addressed, and being instructed to lie to Cassie about Diddy's whereabouts. She recalled overhearing him instruct another employee to clean the girl up after a party, referring to an unconscious woman allegedly found in a hotel suite. But the most harrowing memory came from an incident where Cassie confronted Diddy in front of staff about being forced into another freak-off. His response: laughter. "You belong to me," he said. Cassie walked away in tears. Staff said no one moved. Outside the courtroom, old footage of Diddy resurfaced: interviews, party clips, offhand jokes. What once seemed like boastful anecdotes of the bad boy lifestyle now felt like veiled confessions. Legal analysts noted how the defense leaned hard into the claim that Cassie was a willing participant, but each witness chipped away at that defense, revealing a pattern: love bombs followed by humiliation, rage followed by gifts. Freedom dangled but never granted. Cassie, prosecutors argued, hadn't stayed because she liked it, she stayed because she was made to forget she could leave. This was more than a toxic relationship, it was captivity in disguise. As week 2 approached, attention turned to a new name: Aubrey O'Day. Known for her blunt honesty, the former Danity Kane singer had spoken out before but never under oath. Her testimony was as explosive as expected. Aubrey described making the band as a boot camp of psychological warfare. Contestants were berated, humiliated, and threatened constantly. It wasn't about building stars, she said. It was about breaking wills. But it was what happened when the cameras were off that left the courtroom stunned. Aubrey said Diddy kept tabs on Cassie and other women in his orbit. She once walked in on him screaming at Cassie in a soundproof studio, accusing her of being boring and killing his vibe, before throwing a laptop that shattered inches from her head. She claimed the freak-offs weren't limited to Cassie assistants, stylists. Even dancers were invited to private events where the lines of consent were blurred beyond recognition. The most shocking moment came when she described the Miami party where Diddy allegedly encouraged male execs to sample the menu. Asked what that meant, Aubrey paused, then said he was talking about the women. When asked if she saw drugs used during these parties, she didn't hesitate: ecstasy, MDMA, coke. It was like candy. Then she turned directly to the jury and delivered a gut punch. People keep asking why Cassie didn't leave. I'll tell you. Because when someone controls your music, your money, your body, and your future, you're not in a relationship. You're in a prison. Diddy's body language said it all. He covered his face, his posture collapsed inward. According to reporters, it was the first time he looked like a man truly cornered. By the end of the week, the prosecution had done what once seemed unthinkable. They'd taken one of the most untouchable names in music and revealed something fragile beneath it. The case was no longer about a single act, it was about a system, a culture of control, and multiple former employees. Now whistleblowers confirmed the existence of tapes, videos of sexual encounters. One witness said Diddy called them his insurance. That phrase echoed through the courtroom like a warning. The defense scrambled. They rolled out character witnesses, played old interviews where Cassie praised Diddy. They said she benefited from the lifestyle. But prosecutors pushed back, showing text where Cassie expressed fear, confusion, obligation. She wasn't enjoying the ride. She was surviving it. And the jury, they weren't just listening. They were watching. Watching Diddy shrink. Watching a parade of witnesses say the same thing. Behind the music, behind the fame, was a man obsessed with power. The week ended with a jaw-dropping moment. Prosecutors displayed a document listing over 60 active lawsuits filed against Diddy. The allegations ranged from sexual misconduct to trafficking to psychological abuse. One alleged victim had been only 9 years old. The courtroom froze. The judge recessed for the weekend. Diddy stood slowly, eyes down. He didn't look at the cameras. He didn't wave. He just walked. Week 1 was over. And for the first time in decades, Sean Diddy Combs wasn't orchestrating the scene. He was trapped inside it.